I mean, so many of these systems that seem archaic. I believe, was it Chesterton who said, before you take down a fence, you should first ask why it was put up. I think that was Chesterton. That a lot of these old systems that we think of as, sure, what relevance has that got today? We don't stop and think about why that was put in place. I mean, I remember I was in Colombia several years ago, and I was learning about the local tribes, and I've forgotten the specifics. I couldn't name the individual tribes, but the tour guide who was showing us around, who was a local, was telling us that one of the tribes in particular was far more successful than all of its neighbors. It was like the local superpower. And historians now attribute that to the fact that they had a very strict prohibition in their culture on two things: adultery and incest. You weren't able to marry your cousin or anything like that. And if you slept with, I think they had polygamy, but if you slept with anyone outside of your polygamous marriage, there were very serious consequences. Whereas all their neighboring tribes didn't have those same restrictions. You could marry whoever you want, sleep with whoever you want, it didn't matter. And as a result, they had a much stronger society. They avoided a lot of genetic problems because of the incest thing and so on and so forth. And I guess what you realize is that these systems, the reason our society is successful is because of painstakingly developed social contracts and agreements that were put in place for a reason. It wasn't on a whim, as you said earlier. It wasn't like somebody just woke up one day and said, do you know what, we're going to ban X, Y, and Z because we feel like it. No, there's a huge story behind this that we might not necessarily remember, but we should be very cautious before we just start pulling at these things like a Jenga tower.
Yes, that example you mentioned of the tribe that began to have tighter constraints on their practice of sexuality, leading to increased flourishing of that tribe. That actually happens, according to research of J.D. Unwin, who researched 86 different societies, both uncivilized and civilized, which he defined what he meant by those terms. That happened every time, no exceptions. Now, that is truly remarkable. When you discover a principle out there that works every time, no exceptions, then you have found something fundamentally important to humanity. And what he discovered is that there's a tipping point within, he classified the sexuality and how it's applied in different civilizations in a number of different levels. But what he found is that there's a tipping point, and if you cross that tipping point, if you go above that tipping point, every society will flourish. And if you keep it up there, you'll really begin to see the results within 3 generations. But if you drop below the tipping point, in every case, no exceptions, that civilization, society collapses. And unfortunately, that's where our culture is today. We crossed that tipping point a couple of decades ago.